Turmeric, ginger, and black pepper. Wrap your head around that. Hello, dudes, dudettes, duders, and everyone in between. Welcome to How to Do Everything So You Don't Have to, a series where we teach you how to think like a producer. We recently made a video about what I look for as a producer when a demo reel or portfolio comes across my desk, and the most common mistakes I see in early career show reels. Short version, a lot of filmmakers early in their career are building their reels around what they want to show, not what producers want to see. Click through the link for the long version of the answer. As you become more sensitive to what producers are looking for when they review your work, you might realize that there are gaps in your portfolio that you might need to fill. At first, those gaps might give you a pit in your stomach as you're reminded once again how far ahead everyone else is and blah, 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 imposter syndrome. You know the drill. But take heart. The first step to fixing a problem is to identify it, and if you're watching this video, it's likely that you've identified the problem. That means we can jump right into fixing it. And that's exactly what we're focusing on in this video, how to identify and fill in the gaps in your show reel. Now, as the saying goes, the best cure for anxiety is action, but all action requires an investment of some sort, even if it's just time. So as we move through this discussion, we'll be doing so not just with an eye towards the investments you'll have to make, but also the risk associated and the potential rewards. Fix your reel. Good news! The problem might not be with your experience and the footage you have available for your reel. It might be that you're cutting the footage together incorrectly. Quick rules of thumb. Your show reel should be about 2 minutes long, perhaps pushing 3, if it's a director's reel and you want to include a scene that you're proud of because of how it breathes. While your reel can be 2 minutes long, remember that most decisions are made in the first 3 to 5 seconds. I hope that doesn't make you feel unnecessary stress or pressure, because if your first 3 to 5 seconds are solid, you're in really good shape. The hardest part is already over, which brings up the question of how you pace the next 115 seconds of your show reel. I feel like the most natural instinct for identifying gaps and tightening screws would be to watch show reels of folks whose careers have gone on a trajectory similar to the one you're working towards. This isn't a bad idea, and if you want to do it, you can. Here's the problem. Everyone we work with worth their day rate isn't making show reels. They're too busy working their day rate. Your portfolio is a business card. Once your number is in enough phones, you don't really need a business card anymore, do ya? So the people who are actually doing the job full-time and doing it well stop updating their reels and portfolios. This creates an information imbalance where people who are on the first steps of their careers are looking to people on the 10th steps of their careers for information on how people in the 1000th steps of their careers do it. If you're watching show reels, do it for inspiration on structure, pacing, and mood. But my sincere hope is that you take other show reels and only use them as inspiration, not really as a mandate on how yours should look and feel. Even better than watching the reels of your contemporaries is to reach out to producers that didn't hire you and ask them why you didn't make the cut. The cost here is going to be twofold. First, this strategy will take time. Second, you better be ready for some very honest answers. The good news is that honesty will get you to the outcome you're working towards faster. The bad news is that it can sometimes hurt. A lot. If you have a show reel or portfolio, you've already put a lot of time, money, care, passion, and energy into your art. You collected the best work you've done, and now you're asking someone to tell you the ways in which it was inadequate. That's hard, but then, if it was easy, everyone would do it. But I promise you this. If you reach out to enough producers and get enough responses, you will very likely see feedback that overlaps. While there's no such thing as truth in art, those common answers will get you as close to truth as possible for the ways in which you need to improve your reel. There's something else you might not know about the hiring process. People who are involved in hiring care about the task for a couple of reasons. First, everyone who reviews applications has applied for jobs. We are very aware of how it feels to be on the other side of the table. We know how important a job might be to someone who needs it and how deep the desire can be to work on a project or to collaborate with a specific team. Second, a good hire can accelerate the growth of a company and a bad one can stall it. A really bad one can kill it. I've seen entire companies go under because one disproportionately weak link was in a permanent position, and it was more cost-effective to let the entire company go down than to extract the dirtbag from their contractual position of power. All this to say that the person who's reviewing your reel or portfolio is highly invested in the task they've been given. Because of this, portfolios and show reels are given careful consideration and discussed. Like velociraptors testing a fence for weakness, we remember. The applicant that inquires how their show reel fell short will absolutely be remembered. And if they send us a show reel 6 months or a year later that's taken some of that feedback into account, you better believe we'll remember that too. It doesn't even have to be all the feedback. It shouldn't be all the feedback. I've said it before and I'll say it again. When I'm hiring, a huge concern is having too many me's on the team. I get me for free when I produce a show. So when you're soliciting feedback on your show reel or portfolio, don't build a one-to-one against the feedback. Make it better than that by making it yours. Crew up the ladder. If you're building out your show reel or portfolio, I think it's safe to assume that you're vying for key positions. That is DP or director or something at that level. I've never seen a PA with a show reel of the productions they'd been on, which actually, if you're trying to get PA work, that might be a cute way to get your application noticed. Shots of you pushing a hand truck of water bottles up a hill or explaining to a background extra that they've parked in the crew lot and they have to drive a mile away and wait for the van. It's certainly a show reel that I would watch front to back. But back on topic. We assume you're trying to get key roles, but that certainly doesn't mean that you should only be seeking work in that key position. I would argue that you really shouldn't confine your job hunt to that department, and not to go completely off the map, but I don't think you should only be seeking work in that industry. We'll get back to that in a minute. The best way to get work in the film industry is through networking, whether you're running your business as a freelancer or a fully incorporated entity. The best thing about crewing is that you're basically getting paid to network, and it's not like you're getting paid to network at a goofy networking event where every conversation is forced and the only salvation you can hope for is an open bar. You're just there, meeting everyone, and showing them that you can do the task really, really well. There's no better job interview than one that is on-site, 10 hours long, paid, and with meals and crafty ready and waiting for you. When you're crewing, you're demonstrating that you can handle what every producer worries about most. Whether or not you'll drive everyone nuts if you're stuck together on set for 12 hours. That doesn't mean you have to be cool for 12 hours or charming or witty or anything like that. It just means that you can't drive anyone nuts for 12 hours. If you can pull that off, you're 90% there. So, crew up the ladder and crew in other departments, not just other departments, but other industries. One of the benefits of doing corporate videography is that I end up spending a lot of time with the proverbial smartest guy in the room. The C-suite guys who have earned their positions. I've done productions domestically and abroad, from mom and pop shops to Fortune 500 and Fortune 10 clients. Do you know what all these smartest guys in the room have in common? Interests outside of their work. I've worked with software engineers responsible for hundreds of millions in revenue who DJ vinyl on the weekends and nobody at the local bar has any idea what they're worth. I've worked with a studio head with a helicopter pilot's license who only flew recreationally, the owner of an import-export company who spent his free time doing costume performances for underprivileged children. When I asked him why, he just said, "It makes him happy, what do you want?" I could go on, but the point is, when it comes to the smartest people in the room, none of them live and breathe their jobs. That's part of why they're so good at their jobs. The world is a fascinating place, and people who understand that and are fascinated tend to be warmly received by the world. Bet on yourself. I saved the scariest for last, and that's because it is, without question, the most fun. This method requires that you identify the projects your show reel is missing and then build them yourself. Now, obviously, this is the most risk-intense of anything discussed in this video, but in a lot of ways, it's also the least risky. But we'll get to the sunshine and lollipops in a moment. First, let's look at the cold, hard reality of betting on yourself. You're going to be spending money. If the footage on your show reel isn't getting a response, it's really unlikely that you'll be able to fill those gaps at zero hard cost. Locations you can get for free, filled with actors that you can get for free, and captured by crew that will work for free simply isn't going to be sufficient. I'm not saying that everyone involved has to get paid union rates, just that this route is more costly than the other two suggestions. The other large chunk of risk you're going to have to swallow is a bit more nebulous, but no less corrosive if handled incorrectly. And that is the risk associated with pushing past the edge of your expertise. If your background is as a director of photography, producing your own project might reveal deficiencies in your understanding of the total production pipeline that you weren't aware of. Simply put, you don't know what you don't know, and the thing that you don't know the most is how much you're going to have to spend to find out what you don't know you don't know. You know, this isn't a real problem, as you'll be the beneficiary of all the new knowledge that you uncover once outside the edge of your expertise. But you do have to go into the project knowing that you yourself will be delivering less bang for the buck than you've likely come to expect from yourself. If you are used to being respected for the breadth and depth of knowledge you have regarding your craft, it can be a really cold splash of water to have people on your team think you're an idiot. But that's what happens when you push past the edge of your expertise. If you're an experienced DP and you initiate a project, you're now a producer, possibly a director. If it turns out that you're not a very good producer or director, the final result might not even be good enough for use in your showreel. And if it's not good enough, it shouldn't go in just because you invested a lot into the project. At that point, it takes a strong will and presence of mind to understand that the investment was entirely spent on chipping away at your pockets of ignorance, and that you still have to spend more to improve your showreel. And that is why we push about 20 to 30% of the money we bring in directly into self-starter projects that are as far outside the edges of our expertise as possible without wiping out completely. This is how, as a business, we strengthen our production muscles. Granted, it's a lot easier to take risks like that when you have a few clients on retainer. But if there's one thing I can attest to as someone who's been doing this for decades, it's that ignorance is a greater liability than lack of funds, by an order of magnitude. We spend every extra penny that we can shaving away at ignorance because we're not getting hired for the gear we own. Our value comes in a robust knowledge base. Aside from learning what you don't know and improving your skill set, there's a secondary reward that really only comes from self-starter projects. The bonds that you will form on those projects will prove to be more meaningful than almost any other projects you work on. And there's a reason for this. When you initiate a project, it will be something that reflects your glowing heart. It'll end up being something you care about because, after all, why would you spend all that money on something that you don't care about? So you'll do your casting calls and you'll do your crew posts, and people will be attracted to the project because the thing that glows inside of you also glows inside of them. If you cast correctly and crew up well, you'll see people on your team giving parts of themselves because they care about the same things that you care about. They are delighted or reviled by the same things that delight and revile you. And guess what? 20 years later, you'll still be delighted and reviled by the same things. And you'll always be looking for another chance to get together and do a project just because it's the most fun thing to do in the entire world. Oh, and you might get some good footage for your reel as well. If you found anything in here useful, I'd like to warmly invite you to subscribe, as there's a good chance we might release another video that you find equally useful. Until next time though, please stop watching YouTube and go build the best showreel or portfolio imaginable so that you can get a whole bunch of jobs and then have the financial stability to produce every passion project you've ever imagined.